Panel started, and before we do, we have some special guests in the audience. Kent and Vixen are in the front row over there. They're on The Amazing Race, Unfinished Business, and it's still airing every Sunday at 8. You can check that out. We have Lauren from So You Think You Can Dance, So You Think You Can Dance, All Stars, Glee, a whole bunch of other shows. And with that, let's get started. So what I'd like to do is have all the panelists go down the line and tell me what show you were on. We'll start with Bob Crowley.
I'm Bob Crowley. I was on Survivor Gabon.
I'm John Fincher. I was on Survivor Samoa.
I'm PJ La. I was on Survivor China.
I'm Brooke Roberts. I was on Amazing Race.
Bianca Smith, Amazing Race 7.
Deborah Coyne, Amazing Race.
Nat Strand, Amazing Race. Kat Chang, Amazing Race.
All right, so let's get the big question out of the way. Bob, you won $1 million. What did you do with the money?
I probably wrote the biggest check I've ever written for $400,000, and because I really wanted to buy it, you get a little card called Get Out of Jail Free, which apparently Richard didn't buy. I spent it on taxes because I didn't want to go visit Richard.
And I want to go down the line. Tell me how you got cast on the show, starting with John. Did you send in a tape? Were you recruited?
I kind of had a unique situation. My roommates were at a bar by our house hitting on some girls. Turned out they were casting associates. And I think at the time they were looking for, I think it was something like a real asshole with like full sleeves of tattoos or something. And the pitch that they gave him was, well, we know a guy, he doesn't have tattoos, but he's a rocket scientist and he's definitely an asshole. And I got a call the next day, went to the hotel, checked in and did casting for a week, and then that was it.
PG?
Yeah. I actually did get recruited. It was a friend of mine called me up, and he had called my ex-boss. And apparently they were still lacking an Asian female, and I know I'm not supposed to say that, but it does come up and they gotta fill in certain spots. So I went in and spent about a month talking, going through interviews and everything like that, and they told me about a week before I left that I actually got on.
And I own a home shopping house, so we're on Direct and Dish, and the casting directors from Amazing Race came up with a novel idea, hey, we need some home shopping house. So before I went on set one day, I get a random call from CBS saying, hey, would you be interested in doing this show? And I had watched bits here and there and promos of it, but it was, oh, okay, Amazing Race, I think I can handle that. And same thing, went through a round of interviews and so forth in LA, and my friend Claire and I, who's also a home shopping host, got cast.
Yeah, I had watched The Amazing Race once, and I saw it, and I thought, that is right up my alley. And I called Debbie the next day, and I said, and I was living in DC at the time, she was in California, and I said, so Deb, let's do The Amazing Race. And it was as simple as that. We didn't realize that there are hundreds of thousands of applications, and it's this big, huge process. But sure enough, I flew to LA, we sent in a tape, we went on vacation.
Yeah, she was coming to visit. We were leaving for Honduras the next day, so we put together a tape, sent it off, and immediately we're like, yeah, we're going to be on Amazing Race. Had no idea that we were very blessed to be.
Yes, sure enough, we were picked.
Kat and I also sent in a tape. We talked to some people. They were in the kind of the final stages of casting, but they liked our story that we were two female physicians and that we did, races and stuff together. And so they said, well, it's a little late, but send something in. We'll love to come meet you. And we probably sent in the crappiest, the worst video ever made. So we were promptly called back and, no, thank you. We don't think you'll fit in with the cast. So being stubborn as we are, I said, I'm going to be in LA anyway. Let us just come by. I just didn't really take
Give us 5 minutes, and they did, and the 5 minutes turned into come stay with us for the whole week for semifinals, and then they cast us. So we were told no initially.
Now we have some lovely ladies at the end of the panel, all from The Amazing Race, and that begs the question, Nat and Kat, you guys were the first all-female team to win. Why do you think it took so long for an all-female team to win that show?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think a lot of it, as anyone who's ever seen The Amazing Race, sometimes there's a good amount of luck involved, and there are definitely points in the race where if things were a little bit different, we would have been eliminated. So some things just came in line for us, and we were the lucky ones to actually pull it off.
And Brooke, does that really yank your chain, being so close and yet so far?
I don't think I have a chain to yank. It hurts. We said throughout the entire race that if it isn't us, we want it to be Nat and Kat, and I've said it a million times, and I mean it still this day. Whether it was Claire and I, we wanted a female team, and we got it, so we feel like we were part of history.
And Debbie and Bianca, I don't need to ask you that question because you were up against the greatest reality star of them all in Boston Rob. So I guess my question for you guys is Boston Rob the greatest of all time, and should we all just bow now?
We know he's your favorite, Mertz.
I'm completely impartial.
Oh, right. We had a lot of fun. I mean, I know on the show there was a lot of drama, but I mean, it's been such a long time now, and the reality of it is behind the scenes, it was a lot of fun, and we really are close and stayed close to a lot of people from our show. So,
Including Rob.
and Andrew.
Now, I know a question that a lot of the fans always have is, on your shows, is the camera on 24/7? Like, does it follow you when you want to go to the bathroom? Does it record every single conversation? Or if you wanted to make an alliance with somebody and you didn't want anybody else to see, could you see that, like sort of avoid the cameras, Bob?
If it wasn't on tape, it wasn't there. And I was actually surprised. The cameras are not on all the time. After they dropped them in the water, they stopped working. But they were on 24/7. As a matter of fact, there was a funny incident that occurred on my show at 2 o'clock in the morning. It was cold, I was cuddled up, and I heard this sound, and I looked up, and right over the top of me was this cameraman. And I was cuddled up, it was too late to go. And
Not like you don't do that every day, right?
But I was sitting there thinking, oh my God, my homophobe friend's gonna freak out when they see this, because I had Charlie, he was so warm. We were just cuddled right up.
John, any embarrassing stories with the cameras?
No, I think I came off as my perfectly charming self. I think it was a very accurate portrayal. No, I mean the cameras are on you all the time. I mean, I don't think anyone is. They do a good job of getting people that aren't sort of shy. I think so. I don't think anyone's running away from the cameras. And in the context of Survivor, which is a little bit different than The Amazing Race, obviously, it doesn't really help you to think about the cameras being there. You know what I mean? I think I was so focused on the strategy component of things that, thinking about the cameras being on you doesn't help you progress in the game at all. Whereas maybe you're having a little more fun, on the race or something. But no, so I mean, they're there every time you're with someone else. If you want to run off by yourself, you can do that. But every time you're with another person, you have cameras on.
PG?
You get used to the cameras after a while. They start to blend into the background, and pretty soon you're so focused on things like getting food or water and not dying that you kind of forget they're there. They did tell us, they were like, the only times they will not follow you is if you go to the bathroom by yourself. But they were like, if you go, two girls go off and decide they want to go to the bathroom, together, they're like, we will come and we will film you going to the bathroom. Because like anytime there's two people together, there's going to be talking, and that's it. And they were like, you can try to hide stuff away from the cameras. They're like, what's going to happen is that whole storyline is just going to get taken out, because if it doesn't make sense because we didn't see that alliance being formed, it's not going to be on there. And I think everybody was really aware of that. I think it's really accurate. Like everything that you see is what happens. They don't have secret porta potties, and they don't have a catering truck on the sidelines or anything.
What about our racers? Is it the same sort of thing?
Well, to that end, I would just say that I think in The Amazing Race, though, they are, because there's so many different teams, they're going to peg you a certain way. So even from the beginning, or maybe it comes later in the editing, they're going to paint you in a certain light. So, for instance, we lucked out. We came off really as the best version of ourselves. But there was quite a bit of fighting that they didn't see. We've been best friends for 26 years or something. That was probably the only time that we were like a little more, but none of that was on camera, so we came off like perfect little angels, which is a good representation of the truth of our friendship. So, but they do, I think, probably cast you in a light.
Well, I think on our show too, Claire and I are used to being in front of camera, and one of their main concerns was, are you going to constantly be censoring yourself? And so that did happen, I felt, a couple times, but I remember we're driving in the cars and the cameras are down because you have your camera guys with you everywhere you go. And I wasn't thinking that your microphone's on, and they have cars following you everywhere, the producers, so they can hear everything you're saying. So we become really good friends with our camera guys, the cameras are down, and we're divulging all these personal secret stories, these stories from college, and all of a sudden all the producers come up, they're like, hey, Brooke and Claire, we're like, oh God. So they have it all on tape and they heard everything. So it's not even necessarily that the camera's in your face. You have a microphone attached to you everywhere you go, and a lot of people are listening, and that's something I didn't realize until later.
Were you censoring yourself when we were smelling each other's shoes? In the
No, that was not censorship either. See, I didn't see a camera in there, but then they came.
It's true, you forget the camera's there. I mean, it just kind of, and they're really good at that too. When they see something going on, the camera's on you, but they're kind of in the background, you know, they're like, this is good right here. These girls are delirious, let's film.
You can't self-censor 24 hours
No,
a
you
day.
Yeah, and you're that tired and that.
And they know
you
how to
stressed.
piss you off, to like drag bring every last bit of emotion out of you.
They ask really good questions, like in the heat of something, you know, it's perfect producing, so.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
right when you don't want them there, that's when they're there in your face asking, like when you're so stressed out, is this hard? Are you stressed out?
It's like those times when you're pissed, and in normal life, you would not say anything. You know, you'd be pissed, but you're like, I'm just gonna keep it in. And then at that point, they keep picking at it, and they're like, you look so mad. Like, why are you so angry? And they keep looking, you know. And then, of course, during all the stress, and it all comes out. So there's really I don't think there's really hiding anything.
Are you ever afraid that like you're going to come off as like mean or something and you have to censor yourself, like knowing that it's going to be filmed, knowing your parents are going to see this show? Like how much of it is sort of controlling what you put out there? I'll start with you guys at the end, Nat and Kat.
Well, obviously Nat and I are physicians, so that was something we were worried about going in. But you really get so caught up in the moment that you're just concentrating on whatever you're doing. And so it was one of those things that after the race, we were like, oh, how are they going to edit this now? And that was more of the concern rather than when you were actually there in the moment, because you're just so caught up in what you're doing and trying to get it done and moving on and beating the team behind you.
It helps when you win too, right?
Yeah.
You always get the good edit then.
Yeah, I would just agree with that. You know, the first couple minutes, I just totally forgot about the cameras. And it's funny because when you watch the show, which we did, we watched all the shows before we got on, we were like, I can't believe they're saying that. And they know they're being filmed. But you get there and you're in it and you put your game faces on and you're there to compete. And you don't have time to like censor yourself.
Well, and how much can anybody censor themselves when they're angry? I mean, you know, they really do put you in a
And
situation
hungry
where
and tired
you haven't
and thirsty.
eaten, you haven't slept, like all your rhythms are off, and you're just, and then your car breaks down, and the plane doesn't come, and you know, it's really like all the.
And we would, being the nerds that we are, we'd be like, okay, well, they were filming us, 24 hours a day, and the episode's going to be, maybe 45 minutes long, so then each team is going to get like 7 minutes. So, crap, what 7 minutes are they going to pick out of 48 hours? It really kind of makes you nervous.
What about you, PG? Was it hard to sort of keep everything in check?
No, I already knew. I was going to come off as bossy and bitchy, but I don't think you come on this type of show if you're not prepared, if you're not confident of who you are as a person, and you're not prepared to show that constantly. Like you're not going to be on one of these reality shows. So I think you have a good idea of what to expect. Like when they asked me, why should we cast you? And I said, because your audience will probably either hate me or love me, and I'm like, I know it'll go either way, and I think it's been pretty accurate, so you know how you're going to get portrayed, and they know already too.
John?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us are pretty comfortable with who we are, and you're not necessarily averse to the public and the masses, seeing that, and some people complain about a bad edit or stuff like that, but the reality of it is people said things, you know what I mean? That you won't find some clip of me saying something racist because I never said it, but there are people that are so dumb that they find for these shows that say things like that and that aren't concerned about stuff like that. But I mean, I think people are who they are, you know what I mean? And in the context of Survivor, when you're not eating and sleeping, that comes out a lot quicker than it does with most other people. But there's a certain level of self-censorship, I think, especially for some of us that are professionals and stuff in the beginning. But then you realize your boss is never going to call you and fire you or something because of how you came off on a television show, So,
Bob?
I'd have to agree with John. I mean, most of us know who we are, and we're pretty. We like being out there. I think. I mean, I know I do, and it's just. I know I didn't censor myself so much. I don't think you can because it just by the time maybe the first 2 days, but then. And then, of course, as a teacher, one of the things they said to me was, my students, when they found out I'd send in a tape, 2A class, there was always some girl in front that would raise her hand and said, "Don't go naked, Mr. Crowley." And I was really surprised when I
You're really taking the digs at Richard today, huh?
Yeah, I was really surprised when I got there because one of the producers came up to me and said, Bob, we don't want you to go naked for two reasons. One, we're trying to give you a good edit as a teacher, and the other, we just don't have that blur that's long enough.
Oh, wow. The question that people ask the most is like, how do I get on Survivor? How do I get on The Amazing Race? Now, my theory has always been that you have to be, for lack of a better term, you have to be reasonably good looking. Judging by this panel, exceptionally good looking.
You have to be a hot chick. That's how Bob and I got on.
Oh, well, okay. So in your opinion, if you had to say, like, there's one thing to get on one of these shows, what is it? We'll start with Bob.
I think you have to be yourself, but you have to be different.
Don't give me that generic, like, you have to be yourself, because everybody says that.
I'll articulate it like this then.
like-
I think you have to find the things that make you unique, and I think you have to magnify each of those features in front of a casting director.
But, but is there a version of yourself that just sucks? Do you know what I mean? Like, if you don't have a big personality, should you just not apply?
I mean,
Right.
look, I mean, apply. If you want to be on it, apply. You're never going to get on if you don't apply, for the most part.
Right.
But if you don't have a big enough personality, you're not going to make it.
Right.
And again, you do have characters that get on with zero personality.
Do you think that personality or looks are more important, or is it a combination of the two?
I don't have experience with that because I have both, so I don't know.
Oh, wow.
One or the other. I'm just kidding. No, they're looking for a very diverse group of people. They're looking for the way they interact with each other. They're looking for, at times they need an Asian female, right? At times they need something else. At times they need someone who's very polarizing. At times they need someone who's very confrontational. So there's a little bit of luck that plays into it, and you have to show them that you can be all these different things and say, hey, when you need this component, I can give you that. When you need this component, I can also give you that. And you have to be able to sort of turn it on. It's hard, there's no real on and off switch to people's personalities, but you have to turn it on sort of on command, and you sort of have to read your cast and people and see what they're really looking for, and you have to be able to do it sort of every sort of component of your personality you have to have on steroids and have it be bigger than it really is and show them what you're capable of doing, I think.
Well, I also sunbathed topless at the pool at the hotel where they were keeping us for auditions, and it probably didn't hurt. I didn't know anyone could see, but...
No, I think it's finding a character. I think it's finding a storyline. And so for Claire and I, they had the doctors, they had the hot volleyball blonde team, and then they had a daughter and mother team. So we had to figure out where we fit in that lineup, and that's what you have to do as an individual. So it's not necessarily what Mert said, do you have to be attractive, do you have to have personality? Of course you have to have all those things, but I think the most important thing is what's your story, what's your storyline? And for Claire and I, it was about being empowering women, besides being home shopping hosts. So it's what is your shtick, what is your story, and I think that's more powerful than any other thing you could do.
I have to agree with Brooke there. I totally felt that way, that they were kind of looking for what your shtick was. Like, are you the home shopping host? Are you the, doctors that, do this? Are you, it's just finding what your storyline is, because really you only have a few minutes to make that impression. And, there's so many aspects to your personality, so which little bit are you going to choose? Like, what's the interesting part about you? I mean, for Andy and Jenna, it was like their relationship. They didn't really have to say much about either one of themselves as a person. It was just that dynamic. So, I think, looks probably obviously help. I don't at all think that that's the number one thing. I think it's your story. I think it's the dynamic or whatever your shtick is. I have to agree with
I think the story is what piques their interest and gets you to a certain point, but then what gets you cast is your interaction with each other on the race, because that's what they really concentrate on. And, for Nat and I, they were trying to see if we had a lot of conflict, and we don't, and so I guess we were going to be more of the what you saw is like, more teamwork. We actually got along and we were supportive of each other. And obviously other couples, they're going to be like the fighting, they're cast purposely because they're having certain issues in their relationship and so forth.
How important is the relationship between the partners on The Amazing Race in terms of doing well?
I think it's the number one thing. I mean, there's going to be, it's so hard. That's one thing about Survivor. I think it's so hard because everybody's by themselves playing against each other, even if you have an alliance. And in The Amazing Race, I mean, when one person falls, the other person has to pick you up. When one person gets weak, the other person has to be strong. It is just, I mean, you guys have seen it. And when you start getting that infighting, when you're bringing each other down, those teams just self-destruct so quickly. So I think, more so than any other reality show, I think especially in The Amazing Race, it's really the team. I think that's so important.
I agree with that.
The argument that I hear is like, there's a lot of backstabbing on Survivor, whereas The Amazing Race is a more wholesome show. Do you agree with that assessment, starting with Bob?
Yeah, there is. It's got to be some backstabbing because that's the whole premise of the show is to make it to the end. I sort of lucked out in that in my situation. All I did was make a couple of fake idols and sort of slide off to the side. But it's an incredible game of chess. Only you're dealing with all live chess members that are making their own mind up, and they can change them at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to, especially in Survivors. Like Bob says, people change their minds from 1 second to the next, and maybe you don't necessarily want to off somebody or stab them in the back or vote them off, or but they change their mind, and all of a sudden their interests don't align with yours anymore, and they're doing something stupid, and whoops, they got to go. And I think people like to see that.
PG?
I think it's a lot easier because on the race, you just have to not be last to stay in the game. And
Survivor's much harder.
There's no, but what I'm saying is there's no guarantee. A lot of times they can depend on their own prowess, and they know that they can do well or whatever. But in this, it's not just about what you can do for yourself; it's about what other people can do for you. So it's a lot harder, and you get this crazy paranoia. Like I get really jealous when I hear you talk about. You have that one person that is on your side always, and even if you're in a super tight alliance, especially towards the end, you get this weird paranoia where you just don't trust anybody, and you start to feel like you're crazy or I don't know who I can trust anymore, and it's tough.
You're stuck on an island. You have to travel around the world and figure out how to get there. I think it's hard.
We're just jealous, by the way. We all want to be on the race, but they wouldn't put us on.
No, I just think that on the race, though, truly, I think what happens, the dynamic on Survivor is you're stuck on an island, and it's a very incestual relationship. Whereas on the race, you're racing, and you just are thrown to the wolves, and you're running everywhere, so you don't really get to see the other teams a whole lot. And when you do, obviously, there's no reason to fight or bicker. You'll see a few things here and there, like the U-turn and that kind of stuff. But even with us, it's like, great, you turned us, we'll get you on the next leg. Pat, you're it. It is a really different
I think we were
dynamic.
also really lucky. Our season, we got along really well, and they even told us that we would all check into the pit stop, and the production people would say, "What are you, one happy family? What is this? We want more drama."
No, I think the quote was, "You're one big effing family.
Yeah, well,
what is going on?" Whoa, producers are mad.
Yeah, so I think we were lucky because we heard that in other seasons there was more backstabbing and more of that behind the scenes stuff. So
How much time do you guys spend with the other teams?
It depends. If you're traveling, for example, a long train ride, or if you're at an airport 12 hours before the flight takes off. But other than that, you're not in those, when you check in at the pit stops and stuff, you're not together during that period. And then most of the time, you can go, especially when Kat and I were 8 hours behind everybody else for a while. You can go a long time without even seeing another team,
Because that's part of the strategy. They don't want you to know. So when you go to check in, I wouldn't know where now Kat, if they had placed ahead of me, behind me, or usually I'd know if I was behind them, but they would bring you in like cars and they'd go and hide you. So you wouldn't know where everyone else plays. So that when you leave the mat the next day, you have no idea where you are. So that's why everyone's like, I don't know if I'm first, I don't know if I'm last. And when we jump on the mat, you're first. You're like, what? Because you haven't seen anybody for several hours or maybe a day or two.
and even if you do see them in the pit stop hotel, you're not allowed to talk to anybody. So you can't say oh, who got eliminated? Who, even if you see them in passing and they're sitting right next to you, you have to pretend that they're not there. So.
That's why when we're at lunch, I'd be like, so now how did you guys place today? And I just look straight ahead and act like I'm talking to Claire.
Each other, talking to each other.
So did you have a really good day?
Who got out? Who was last? And,
It was really awkward, so we're used to talking like that.
How much of a factor is luck on these shows? Do you credit luck to doing well, Bob?
Oh, I would, at least, Kenny and I had an argument about this. It's on Survivor, I'd say it's 50% at least, because the tribe I ended up with, I stepped on the yellow mat, you stepped on the red mat. It just I ended up with a location that was a little less buggy. The tribes that were picked, which was just sort of relatively random, and I ended up with an incredibly powerful tribe. And anytime a mistake happened, if I look back on it, things that actually I wasn't happy with at the time, it just worked out very well. Now I'll credit myself.
It worked out really well.
Oh, well,
yeah. John?
Yeah, there's clearly a huge luck component. like Bob says, there's luck in every single aspect of the game. I got put on a historically, garbage tribe, I think a lot of people would say. Bob got put on a good one. You look at people that have never won anything in their lives, and they can win this show. You know what I mean? Present company excluded, of course. But I mean, Survivor has had some winners that aren't exactly the most articulate, intelligent people you've ever met. And clearly they got lucky. You know what I mean? They weren't gonna, make $1 million that month doing something else. But luck is a huge factor. Huge factor.
Yeah, I think it mainly has to do with like the tribes and then where you're staying. I think everything else you can control. So people can have turned to like a really bad situation.
In terms of where you're staying, what do you mean?
In terms of like where your tribe is camped out at.
Yeah.
Because like I know the other one, they had a lot of fruit trees and things like that, and we didn't have, supposedly, and I complained to the producers about this, I was just bitching about it, and they were like, well, your camp technically had better fishing, but we never went fishing equipment. So it, so it doesn't matter. We ended up eating like little baby snails and stuff the whole time. They're not bad actually. But like my tribe sucked, and like all the big strong guys were on the other one, and they won a bunch of the challenges in the very beginning, and then suddenly I'm down in numbers, and there's nothing really you could do about that. Like I'm not really going to be of help in like the first couple challenges, which are usually really physical, because then you still have some of your strength. And
How demoralizing is that? Because I feel like on The Amazing Race, if you finish in last, you do a speed bump and you could be right back in it. On Survivor, if you're on a tribe and all of a sudden you're in the minority, I mean, it's pretty much lights out, right? Like, is it hard to get past that? Like, knowing that, like, it's inevitable, it's just which one of us do they pick off first?
yeah, it's hard to get past it. I mean, at that point, that's why like you get desperate and you do whatever you think will happen. Like I threw a challenge, like trying to, see if that would help, or you do whatever, because if you figure there's nothing you can do that'll make it worse, so you might as well try. But it's hard because, at certain points towards the end, I got known for kind of like strategizing too much, and nobody would talk to me. Like everybody was like afraid to talk to me because it was like the golden touch of death or something, and they felt like if they were seen talking to me, then their alliance would assume that they were, trying to do something else.
Yeah.
So it's hard to get out of, but I mean, it's been done before, yeah.
What about luck on The Amazing Race?
I think luck is everything. Obviously, skill, intelligence, knowing how to communicate is a huge skill set on the race. But my favorite story of luck is, or how things can be fair, unfair, and I'm sure everyone has the story of things that went down. And I'm not saying this would have made a difference or not, but on our last leg, when we're literally running for $1 million, they put us in a harness and they drop the first two teams, and they go to drop Claire and I, and they go, whoa, wait. Something's wrong with your harness. So they have to put us back on. They have to take everything off, put everything back on, and it lost us at least 10 minutes. Then we were dropped, and I'm looking at the producer going, we're going to get the time back. We're going to get it back, right? They're like, yeah, we'll talk about it later. And we never did. And there's stories, the race, it's just you're dealing with so many variables. There is no way to make it fair. And every single team has their own story of why it's unfair or how they lost time. And that's why I think it truly is, at the end of the day, probably out of all reality, based on luck more so than I think a lot of shows.
Yep. The simple answer that I have for that is on The Amazing Race, you could be racing for days at a time and there is an elimination. And then, of course, when we were eliminated, that was just like unlucky timing because we were ahead of everybody for so long and we were doing so well. And the one day we kind of messed up, of course, that was the elimination waiting for us. So.
Yeah, I have to agree. There's so much luck. I mean, like Brooke said, like every team has these moments where you're like, oh God, we were so far ahead, and why does the train leave at 6 a.m. tomorrow, and we have to all sit there and wait for everybody to catch up, or why does our taxi driver say he knows where he's going and he has no idea where he's going, and why does our new cab keep breaking down, and we keep pouring our water bottles in the radiator and it still won't go. I mean, like you have, it's like life. I mean, sometimes you work your butt off and it pays off for you. Sometimes you don't do the work and you still get the opportunity. And sometimes you work your butt off and you get an opportunity and you get super lucky. So I think it's just like life, where there's good, there's bad, but I mean, luck is a huge part of it.
No, I agree. And it just has to all come together in order to win. And so it's just, I guess we're lucky.
Yeah. We brought good luck charms.
Take it. Major luck.
And we're going to turn it over for questions from the floor in a second. One of the questions that I have had is like, when is reality TV going to run out? When is this train going to stop? And I wanted to ask you that because, some of you, it's been years since you've been on your shows. When is this reality train going to stop, if ever, Bob?
I don't think it is. It just seems to be getting bigger and bigger. And people love it. People, I find myself, I'm not a big TV person, but I'm watching the guys kill the alligators. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't see the market sort of need for it diminishing anytime soon. I think you're always going to have smart, a lot of people fail to realize how smart the producers are and the production staff is on these things. I think you're always going to have smart people willing to produce these things and guys with a lot of money willing to finance and back them. And you're always going to have crazy people to put on television that normal people want to watch,
Yeah. Humans are voyeurs. We're always going to want to see what that crazy neighbor is doing or, whatever. It's what makes you slow down and look at the car accident on the other side of the freeway. So I think as long as people are crazy, there will be people that want to watch them.
And I think for so long we were sheltered, and here's a movie star, and here's everything's pretty and packaged. And what I love about reality television, I think everyone's looking for that real person, and you always identify with one of them because you're like, hey, they're like me, and you capture real moments, and you really do. As much as people say it's edited, this and that, you really do relate with someone, and I think that's what makes global networking. That's not going to stop. The internet's not going to stop. Reality television isn't going to stop.
Yeah, I agree, and I watch because of what you said, not because I'm looking for this crazy person to do something. But it's because of those real moments of love and friendship and adventure. I enjoy watching that on television. So I don't think it's going to go anywhere anytime soon.
Right, but it is a phenomenon that's specific to our generation, right? It's new and it will be something that eventually will change. There'll be something else. For us, like Mert said, it really has been 5-6 years back. We have careers now. I just got a book deal, by the way, by The Lifelong Dream. My novel comes out. She's running a boutique.
What's the novel title?
This Summer We Came to Life, published by Mira Books in June. So very exciting, lots of stuff. But I think the way we feel about it is that when we're 90 years old and we're still best friends, we're going to be so grateful that we were a part of this phenomenon because it was something that was specific to our times. And it's pretty incredible, right? It changed the entire industry, the entire media, and that's pretty neat.
Yeah, I have to agree. I don't really see it going anywhere. If you think of things like Twitter and Facebook, that's basically reality TV with people that you know, and sometimes even with people that you don't really know. So that whole phenomenon just seems to be growing, and I don't see Twitter going anywhere. I don't see Facebook going anywhere. I don't see reality programming going anywhere either.
And it's so broad. You have your reality shows that are, people all in a house trying to, fighting with each other, and you have a lot of people say for The Amazing Race that a lot of families watch it because they want to teach their kids personal interactions, they want to show geography, and and they talk about things like that. So I think there's all kinds of shows that all fit within reality TV. So I think it's sky's the limit.
All right, with that, are there any questions from the floor?
I wanted to know.
Oh, actually, right behind you first, and then I'll get to you. Yeah.
What has been your best opportunity that has come out of this? And if you didn't, did any of you want to go back to what you were doing beforehand as is and you weren't able to?
I actually had to send a contract where I couldn't go back on my home shopping network for months and months, and that was really odd because you want the viewers to think as if you're still racing. People don't realize that it's already been taped. It's not all live as we're traveling around. So that was really hard. I couldn't work for I think 4 months when it aired, and so that was difficult to be told you can't work, and then your fans are going, "Where are you?" And so that was a bit of a challenge. But I'm back in home shopping, and a lot of doors have opened up in television as far as shows and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for me, I was a high school teacher and I had just finished my master's at the time that the show aired, so it was a perfect opportunity for me to move out to Los Angeles, and I moved in with Debbie, my best friend since I was a little girl. So that was like the best thing that happened. Then I actually got into fashion through one of the other girls that was our competition on the race, and right now I have my own little boutique and a line called Green Denim, and having a great time. I'm glad I made the move to LA.
So it can spur things in your life.
Absolutely.
I think for me, one of the greatest things that has come out of it is that I've really become connected with the diabetic community. Being a type 1 diabetic, a lot of people have reached out, for local fundraisers, for just, being a spokesperson talks to type 1, a lot of children, a lot of newly diagnosed children and their parents, that what you can still do. And to me, it's just been so wonderful to be embraced by the diabetic community. It's something that I've never really been a part of and always wanted to do something for and with. So, but Kat and I both went back to work as physicians, and there was no problem. And 99% of my patients have no idea what the Amazing Race is. So,
Ma'am, you had a question?
My question is regarding the Amazing Race. Like, if you go to a certain place and you get lost, like really lost, do they start giving you directions, going to the right direction?
No, my favorite story is they said that even if you were supposed to, let's say, go to China, but you bought tickets to go to Chile, your cameraman and sound guy would follow you, and you would get on the plane and go to Chile until you got there, and then obviously you realized you were in the wrong country. So they won't even tell you, even if you go to the wrong country.
but we did have an experience in Oman where we were driving off-road trying to get somewhere, and we were headed towards things with slippery roads. There had just been a huge
100-foot
flood.
cliffs.
Yeah, on both sides, and the roads were closed and stuff. So at one point, after we had been on the wrong road for several hours, they actually stopped us and said, we've talked with legal and it's unsafe to let you guys keep going down this road. So we can't tell you where to go, but you cannot keep going where you're going.
Claire and I drove through a river and they didn't stop us. We had water up to our camera guy's feet, and he's going, ah, ah, and then he had to go flying over the rocks and go, why did you stop us? He's all, I can't. So we drove a car through a river. That was my favorite story.
Well, Bianca and I are terrible at directions, which in retrospect was not the greatest idea to go on the Amazing Race. But yeah, I mean, when we joke and my boyfriend's like, God, you're terrible at directions, and all I say is $1 million. I'm like, I lost $1 million. That's how bad at directions I am.
Oh yeah,
But
we
yeah,
were in the wrong country.
We were in the
5
wrong
hours.
country for 5, yeah.
And the funny thing is, we were friends with our camera guys too, and they knew the entire time. I mean, they even filmed the sign going past as we drive, into the wrong country. And
I'm like, look, the ocean.
wait, the ocean. We're not supposed to be in Chile anymore. But no, they don't tell you. Just keep going.
Mertz, can I jump back to the last question?
Yeah.
One of the things that have sort of changed my life is my ability to raise money for different causes. And I just want to throw out that the Reality Rally next week in Temecula with
I was going to give a
Chile.
big plug at the end. Bob.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'm sorry. I got carried away. I got to throw a plug in now. But it's Peg and I have just sort of kept track off the cuff since I've been on the show. It's only a couple of years ago, but we've been involved with different people like Jillian, and we've been involved in raising almost $500,000 for different causes. My cause is the American Red Cross. I'm going to throw my plug in, but I think people like Jillian are doing wonderful things. And I don't know whether Jeff sort of started the trend with his Serpentine project, but that's been a really huge difference in what I'm able to do now.
No, you in the teal.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah.
In terms of these, careers you've grown since you were on the show, how much did those opportunities sort of come to you because of your exposure, and how much did you, actively seek out, people to help you get there? And if so, at what point, after the airing, during, before, whatever?
The book deal, is a lifelong. Like I said, I wanted to be a writer since I was a kid, and this is just an amazing thing that's happened for novels. I mean, I guess it is based on travel and best friends and all the things that The Amazing Race is about and that Amazing Race fans would love. But but I also have, we've been out a lot longer, so 6 years, I don't know. But then again, I'm speaking on a panel and I get to tell you about it. So obviously, you do get a certain exposure and connections that you make.
Most of the stuff that we've been exposed to has been people coming to us. So whether it's through CBS or just emailing on Facebook or somehow sending us something just to our hospital that gets to us 6 weeks later. So I'd say most of the stuff is that people saw us and then thought of something and then reached out.
Yes. Yeah.
I have a question for Brooke. We were really big fans of you and Claire, and we saw you on the commercial for the Unfinished Business. Is there a reason you didn't do it,
Oh, that's horrible. So she's asking about why Claire and I weren't on Unfinished Business. We get that all the time. And they asked us to be on the show. We literally came home. We were home for about a week, and one of the main producers calls us and, how are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm great. I'm just so exhausted. And I'm trying to get my bearings straight. I just want to sleep all the time. And they said, well, do you want to do it again? We'd like to have you come back. And it's like, oh, sure. So Claire and I actually sign up. We'd been training for over a month, and Claire calls me and says, Brooke, I don't think I can go because I'm pregnant. I know. So, but here's the irony of it all. I always say I'll take Cash over any $1 million because she named her baby boy Cash, and he was born a couple days ago, and I consider him a nephew. So all's well that ends well, and we're just, we both have great careers. We're happy with where we're at. But it would have been nice to race again. But she has a baby boy, and literally he was born like 4 days ago. So that's why.
Aww.
Yes, sir.
I enjoyed both of your shows, and I was just curious, when you were talking earlier, you were saying the casting is tied to the stories that you bring. Now that you've gone through the experience, has your stories changed, or are you still the same person that you were before?
That's a great story, and I feel that women empowerment has always been something that Claire and I, I've spent my whole life going around and speaking to women's groups and doing that kind of stuff and working with child abuse and so forth, but it really gave you a platform to just catapult you to do more, and I know that's the same thing for you as well with your diabetes. It just kind of catapulted you in that direction, and then all of a sudden people are going, oh, I see that, and it's interesting when people see something in you that you already knew you had and it's amplified on a format like that. It just catapults it into a whole nother direction. So I think,
Yes,
Let me ask a question, Mertz, really quick.
Oh, go. Yep.
You mentioned preparation for the Amazing Race. I am curious, what does that preparation consist of?
getting a backpack and putting bricks in it and running up hills and stairs. I'm not even kidding. I had a trainer, and I go, have you seen the show? And he literally puts like rocks in a backpack and you're running because it really is grueling physically. I mean, you're literally all the time go with a heavy backpack that weighs like 60 pounds. And I just think, what did you guys do to train?
We were really nerdy, so we we read a whole bunch of articles on how to avoid jet lag, dehydration, on sport psychology, visualization. We watched, of course, every single episode of The Amazing Race and took notes on what to pack, what not to pack, common mistakes, how to avoid them. I mean,
I practiced meditating because I knew there would be a heights thing, and I had.
We talked about it in advance, so we'd seen every single episode, so we knew there might be a gross food challenge, so we already talked about it. And I'm a vegetarian, and I said, no matter what it is, I'm going to eat it. If we have to shave our heads, we'll do it. If it's only one of us, it'll be me.
Like Kat was going to spin at like 4:30 before going to the OR, and I was like taking these 16-mile runs. I mean, so it's really a combination of like mental, physical, what are you going to pack, and then watching every single episode, and just so you can, because there's only, it's like when in school, if you can get an old test, you're like, oh, well, I know how they ask the questions. Like, so we were just looking at all the old episodes, trying to think of, well, we know how they're going to try and mess us up.
We did that too, which is hilarious because I'd never seen the show before we were cast on it. So I rented them and was like, oh my God, Bianca, I don't want to do it. I was like, it gives me an anxiety attack just watching it. But yeah, it was fun to watch them all and take it.
We memorized different phrases and different languages too.
Like the girls said, I mean, the girls always sort of mention it because I always assume the girls always go to the bathroom in pairs. The cameras are there. And they're there 24/7.
And it's not just like one guy sitting there. I mean, it's for at least in Survivor, it's a 3-person team. You got a cameraman, you got a cameraman's assistant, I guess you would call him, and an audio guy. And they're fast, they're badass. I mean, it's raining. The guy's backpedaling through the jungle, tripping over roots. His assistant's picking him up from the backpack. I mean, they're not missing a shot. And so there definitely is a presence there. And they don't move, you know what I mean? You're freezing, it's raining, and normal people, when you see people like in the rain, they kind of look like this, you know what I mean? These guys are normal. It looks like they're sitting in a room in an office somewhere. But like Bob says, they're everywhere. They're everywhere except when you're by yourself.
It's just one camera. It's not.
There's multiple cameras. I mean, it's a scene. You don't see it. I mean, it's a very big orchestration that you don't see. I mean, if you're at camp, there's probably 15 or to 20, sort of members of production that are there. Everyone has an earpiece in. Everyone's saying, "Yo, get out of this shot." Mike, move. Take 4 steps to your right. I can't get. whatever it is. There's a big orchestration going on. Guys are ready for people to be splintering off and breaking off and having different types of conversations. Yeah, and then they're also organizing like the one-on-one interviews that you see those conversations as well.
So is there like a director assigned to each contestant at each camera crew?
Well, there are 18 segment producers on my show, so there's every challenge had a producer, every XL Island had a producer, each camp had their daytime producer, nighttime producer. There are more producers there than there were contestants.
We had a question over there.
Yeah, okay, this kind of both to the survivors and the racers. Yeah, luck does play a lot of it, but so does the ability to adapt, and so does the ability to look at the situation. If you, at the end, for the survivors at the end of a tribal council or at the end of a night, for the racers at the end of a leg, what can we correct on? In the case of a racers, do you analyze the alliances that you're in and say, okay, maybe I'm better off maybe doing this, or making kind of moves like that?
If you're smart, you do.
That's all you think about besides food, is how you can turn the situation around. I mean, at least that's what I was doing.
Not everyone is like that, you know what I mean? You talk about, like, I asked what the preparation was for the Amazing Race, right? And then Nat and Kat give their super, analytical, intellectual answer, right? Like, because they're analytical, intellectual people, right? Not everyone is a person like that. Not everyone is a strategic thinking person like you, right? There's some person where, I always give the example of, my season, this little blonde girl from Arkansas one, named Natalie.
Natalie White.
When you're getting ready for a challenge, right? And you get your little clue and tree mail, right? And let's just say today it's going to be some badass challenge where you're going to be running full speed and slamming into somebody else, and you're going to do all that stuff. Now, as a dude who's, 6'2", a soccer player and athlete, I'm getting in the zone mentally to prepare for that, right? I'm thinking, when this happens, when that happens, this is what I'm going to do, I'm getting ready, right? She can't compete with me in that challenge, right? But she's also smart in a different way. She knows she can't compete with me, right? What's she doing? She's walking around in the morning with little broken off sticks, giving them to people saying, oh, here's a toothbrush for you. You know what I mean? So everyone sort of does things differently in their own little way to play to their strengths. But absolutely, if you're a smart, analytical person, you're constantly replaying things in your head. Alliances are overlapping, there's fake alliances, there's all sorts of nuances and complexities and stuff that you're constantly having to process and reprocess. When one dynamic changes, you identify something else. How does that affect this? What's the potential fallout of this? If I do this, what's going to happen? What's she going to think happens? How am I being perceived? All those little things, non-stop. Plus, you don't get to eat, so your brain doesn't work. So.
Now, I've never been on Amazing Race, but back to one of the things I said earlier, I think one of the toughest things about Survivor is you're on your own. You are alone. And I know towards the end of my show, where it didn't look like I had a chance to win, and I saw Corinne and Marcus and Charlie and Randy come in, and they'd been drinking and had a shower, they'd been eating, and I'm all by myself. And I have no one to talk to share, like Amazing Race, where at least they have somebody else that they know they can trust, that they know cares about what they're doing. And I think that's what the toughest part of Survivor was, being alone and not having any support that you could really trust. But not to say that Amazing Race isn't just as tough as any of these shows can be just grueling.
Kat, any advice on the Amazing Race side of things? Did you replay moments?
Do you have, let's say, end of a leg, you've got the pit stop, Bill's checked you in. Is there like a coaching session? Is there almost saying, you did this, Nat, you did this, Kat?
We actually did. At the end of every single leg, we would go over, okay, things we could have done better, things, of course, we're analytical. Things that we did.
I'm not that in a complimentary.
Things we did well, things we can concentrate on next time.
We even did for each other, Kat, it kind of hurt my feelings when you said this. Oh, were you mad? No, I wasn't mad. I was just focused. Right. All sorts of things.
Just making sure you're sorting out your.
Especially after, I think, a bad leg, it's really important to get your head back in, especially on the race. You can be in last place, and then the next leg you can win, and I think that's where you really need to bounce back. That's a quality for the race that really can make a big difference. If you start getting down on yourself and not there mentally for the next leg, that's not going to help you.
And it's interesting with the race, the strategy is too, you might notice teams following other teams and that kind of stuff. So you start watching other teams and you see, and you see certain teams are like, if they go right, I'm going left because they don't have a clue what's going on. And then there's other teams that you gravitate towards and you feed off them. The other teams are being very observant of what they were doing, and not too much that we didn't worry about ourselves, but I think that's a strategy on the race. And when pitch comes to shove and you're clueless, put my money on them. They probably know where they're going, and then you fix it from there.
We've got time for one more question. Yes, sir.
Did any of you on the race deal with any animals by any chance? Just saying.
Llamas. We were winning at this point in the race, and I guess the task was either to bring these llamas a couple miles or to carry these heavy baskets on our back a couple miles. And I was like, oh, the llamas, it's gonna be fun, let's do that. And I was so adamant about it. And obviously they're some of the most notoriously stubborn animals, and they were spitting on us, and they were coming up, and they were so stubborn. So we started out number 1, and then we ended up like number 3 or number 4, and that's when we decided to carry the heavy baskets on our back. So yeah, animals didn't bode well for us. What did I say? So mad at you right now. She was so furious with me for picking the llamas. But we still won, so.
All right, well, I just want to get an update from everybody before we end the session about what you're doing now. Bob.
I'm on a panel for Mertz at the...
At his achievement and award ceremony.
I've got several different irons in the fire. I've got some property in Maine, and I am putting in trails, and we are working on putting in yurts for winter camping, and we're working on inviting the wounded warriors out for hunting trips in Maine during the month of November.
For me, it's back to work, business as usual. I'm not trying to be an actor or do all those things that people think people try to do after they go on reality shows, I guess. Business will probably in a couple of years, and living in Venice, back to normal life. Nothing too different for me.
I'm still doing the jewelry business, and you guys can check it out, facebook.com/Laredo. And throw my plug in there as well.
Actually, look at the ring she's got on. I've been meaning to mention it. Absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
I know. I might use you on my network. I've been looking at your rings the whole time. That's kind of ironic. We'll talk later. So you can watch our show Direct and Dish. It's called Direct Shopping Network. I'm working on my own jewelry line as well, and working on other television projects.
Well, yeah, I noticed the jewelry too, and I'd love to have it in our boutique. It's off of Main Street in Santa Monica. It's a little boutique called Green Denim Initiative. I'm developing an organic jeans line and carry a lot of local designers.
I'm
and developing my own design side. Excuse me?
No, it's good.
And then the other thing that we do is we have a group called West Cloverdale Society. So we have charity events all the time. Different, we're open to supporting different events. So look us up, West Cloverdale Society. And find us on Facebook, and we'll invite you to some of our upcoming charity events.
And
we know what Debbie's doing.
Like I said. So everyone look out for it. But seriously, if you do love exotic locations and best friends and stories of love and loss and stuff, I'm really excited. This is the novel that's coming out in June this summer.
Wow. I'm practicing as an interventional pain management physician in Newport Beach in a private practice. I'm also a spokesperson for the JDRF now, and I'll be heading over to lobby Congress with Mary Tyler Moore in June, so I'm really excited about that. And Kat and I have a couple little side projects we're working on. So.
And otherwise, yeah, I work as a full-time anesthesiologist in the Los Angeles area, and that's pretty much it.
Well, I am waiting to see if Reality Obsessed is coming back for a season 4 and working on InsidePulse.com. Before we end the session, I wanted to give a quick plug to Reality Rally, which is happening next weekend to support breast cancer. I believe it's 110 reality stars. 110 reality stars from various shows are going to be in Temecula next weekend. Check out Jillian at the Reality Rally booth. Also want to give a shout out to our other survivors who are sort of incognito at the back there. Bob Dog from Survivor Exile Island and Rock Cesternino from Survivor Amazon. Oh, there you go.
And also Rock has a podcast.
Yeah, also Rock has a podcast.